What's going on? Play Gaming here, back with another Epic 7 video. Today we're going over the balance adjustment preview for August 4th. Starting off with the units that they will be buffing. It looks like they will be buffing Faithless Lidica. I think this has been on the top of a lot of players' wish lists, especially with a lot more Moonlight heroes getting buffed, like the older ones, right? So Faithless Lidica, we'll see what she has in store, as well as the RGB Holiday Yufine, Ervalen, Senya. We also got some 4-star, well, one 4-star, my girl Great Chief Khawana. I don't know what they're going to do to her, but we also got some 3-star unit buffs. We'll see how that goes. And then we have buffs to Alencinox's Wrath and Double Edge Decrescent. So let's start off with Faithless Lidica here. So Faithless Lidica was a unit that I think dominated for a while, and then they released other units that were faster than her. Her thing right now in the current meta is that she's not as fast as all of the other opener units. Her base speed isn't that great. So let's see what kind of buffs they gave her. So blind all enemies with a sword with a 100% chance to dispel one buff. So she still strips, but now if she lands a critical hit, it's going to dispel one additional buff. So she has the ability to strip 2 buffs. So almost a full strip, right? But now you have to build her with 100% crit if you want to be able to guarantee yourself that you're going to strip. So keep that in mind. But if you are building her with 100% crit, hey, they are increasing the damage that she deals with Larkspur, so at least you'll be putting in some damage. Hysteria attacks the enemy indiscriminately, increasing skill cooldown to max, and it increases combat readiness of all allies by 25%. So now she's getting a 25% team CR push to make you go first. I mean, that's, to me, anytime a unit has a team-wide CR push, it can usually be kind of broken, right? Especially if they can be built pretty fast. And then now that you're going to be, if you're running Faithless Lidica, you're going to be running as high crit as you can. And this is going to make her a little bit harder to build, because now that means you need to run her on potentially like a crit set necklace, unless you have like crazy gear, right? And then that crit set necklace has to have a 20+ speed, right? So it's going to be kind of tough, but now she gives a team-wide CR push. So, I mean, you know, you can strip 2 buffs, team-wide, 25% CR push. It might make her a bit more viable. I don't know. We'll see. Moving on to Holiday Yufine, it looks like she's getting damage dealt increased to just 1 bite. Before her Let's Eat Together, this is her passive. It reduces the effect of decreased combat readiness debuffs inflicted on all allies by 50%. Now, well, before it would increase evasion by 20%. And you know, the thing about Holiday Yufine, she got some buffs already. She got the evasion buff. So this increased evasion by 20% and increases evasion by an additional 50 when the caster is at max health. That's a buff that she got. Now they're increasing the evasion by 35%. And increasing evasion by an additional 35% when the caster is at max health. So she's starting off now with a higher increased evasion, right? And then later on, if she's still at max health, or after that, if she's still at max health, she gets an additional 35% increased evasion. So, I mean, still the same percentage, right? Still 70%, but you're starting off with a higher chance to evade. So I think that's fine. Nobody uses Holiday Yufine anymore unless you see Bazaars, right? Yufine's special dispels 2 debuffs. This is her S3 from all allies and attacks all enemies in the middle of a night market. Before, it would give herself increased greater attack for 2 turns. Now it increases the attack of all allies for 2 turns. And you know, this is something I think is great for her kit, because I felt that she didn't provide that much. She would cleanse 2 debuffs. But then that's pretty much it. She would give you some CR push, help you go first, potentially help you cut at least. But then after that, it was tough to follow up. Now everyone else is getting attack buff, which is nice, which is going to help her support your team just a bit better, right? She's going to cleanse, and then now she's going to give everybody an attack buff. You could potentially use her like a budget hand guy, but she is a limited unit, so I mean there is that, because now she partially cleanses and attack buffs, right? And you can kind of build her somewhat fast and tanky. I mean, if you don't want her to deal any damage, right? Because her S1 isn't really going to do anything with the burns. They are increasing her damage on just one bite, which is her S1, I believe. So, I mean, it might be worth it, depending on what the multipliers are. It might be worth it now to give her some damage, give her some crit damage, right? Ervalen, moving on. This guy, you know, I pitied him and never used him. I thought he was going to be really broken when he came out, you know, counterattack stance. He deals damage based on the enemy's health. You know, it seemed kind of OP, but he was not, sadly. So let's see what they did. Vengeance before, he has a soul burn. So rapidly attacks enemy with a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. Now he's getting a soul burn and increases effect chance to 100%. So you have 100% chance to land a defense break for 2 turns. That can be pretty huge. It's not a 1 turn, it's a 2 turn for a 10 soul burn. So it's not too bad. Sword of Hatred before, it looks like they gutted his Sword of Hatred. Before, when the enemy's max health is greater than the caster's max health, combat readiness of the caster increases. So he would get a CR push based on their health, like the difference, right? Up to a maximum of 30%. Now, when the target is an elite or boss monster, grants an extra turn to the caster. What did they do? What did they do to his kit? They completely removed that. So he is a PvE unit only. Now he just attacks. He does have damage dealt decreased. Oh man. And it's a 4-turn cooldown. What? Before it was a 2-turn. Now it's a 4-turn cooldown. They reduced the damage, and this only works on elite or boss monsters. Okay, great. Sword of Hand attacks enemy repeatedly and grants the caster immunity for 1 turn. When the enemy's max health is greater than the caster's max health, combat readiness of the caster increases proportional to the difference up to a maximum of 30%. So this is after awakening, right? Okay. So when the target is an elite or boss monster, grants an extra turn to the caster, and now it increases the attack of the caster for 2 turns. So he gets attack buff with Sword of Hatred, which is, I guess, not that bad. But then his extra turn only works on PvE, right? Attacks the enemy with a sword, adopting a counterattacking stance. This is Heir to the Throne. This is the one where he deals damage based on the difference of the other unit's health, right? So before he would get a counterattacking stance, it would help him, you know, deal damage when it's not his turn. Now it attacks the enemy with a sword, granting increased speed. So that's pretty much it. And they decrease the damage that it deals. So to me, this kind of seems like a nerf, right? I mean, it kind of seems like a nerf. It doesn't really, they completely changed the way his kit works. I think Ervalen finally is going to be put to rest here. Let me know what you think. Moving on, Senya. Senya is getting some buffs. Her Indomitable Spirit attack increases by 30% and critical hit resistance by 50%. This is her passive. So before, it would grant a random buff to all allies for 1 turn. Now it's going to give a barrier to all allies for 2 turns and increase the speed of the caster for 2 turns. Barrier strength increases proportion to the caster's attack. So now she's actually going to provide some type of mitigation, like an FCC-ish, right? I think this is actually pretty decent. You know, before the random buff, you know, sometimes you can get increased healing or, you know, a barrier, so on and so forth. But now everyone's getting a barrier for 2 turns, and she's getting speed buff. And since she's usually built with super high attack, the barriers are going to be pretty thick, right? Her S3 Dragon Slayer Strike now. Okay, so before she would get to counterattack, right, for 2 turns. It's still the same, except now she has an 85% chance to provoke for 1 turn on her S3. And instead of the counterattacking stance being 2 turns, it is now 3 turns. I think that's great. I think that's perfect for her. You know, she's giving damage mitigation now with the barriers based on her attack. She's getting the ability to provoke on the S3, right? Because you want her S1 already has a provoke. Now she has a provoke on the S3. This kind of reminds me of Fire CC, right? My girl Fire CC, she has something similar with the provokes on the S3 and the S1, except she has a defense break. She has a strip and defense break on the S2. Here, she's giving mitigation barriers to all allies. So I think that's really going to help her, especially for anti-cleave, right? Because her thing is not getting crit and then being able to deal some damage back. So I think that's great. It looks like they are changing her exclusive equipment. So before she would get an extended buff duration of the random buff by 1 turn, now she's increasing Grace of the Battlefield's barrier strength by 20%. That's pretty good. That's actually really, really good, because on top of the high attack that she has, she's increasing the barrier strength by 20%. That seems pretty good, honestly. Her exclusive equipment, this is increased greater attack for 3 turns. So before it was 2 turns, now it's 3 turns. You know, that barrier, I think, might be her best in slot now, right? Her best in slot. She doesn't necessarily need the greater attack, but, you know, I think it's fine. Let's see, Great Chief Khawana, not too much here. It looks like attack of the caster before was 15%. So the way that her passive works is every time that she gets attacked by, or an ally gets attacked by a dual attack, she gets an attack increase by 15%. It could go up to 5 times, so it can stack up to 5 times. Now she's getting an attack increase by 25%, and it could stack up to 3 times. So, I mean, she's starting off with a higher attack, so it's going to allow her to deal more damage faster instead of having to wait 5 turns or waiting for your units to get hit 5 times. Now they get hit 3 and you're at max stack attack, right? So I think this will be fine. I mean, she is a Katie's unit, so maybe this will make her a bit more viable in Katie's. I mean, she does what she needs to do. She honestly doesn't need much in Katie's, but hey, any little buff, she's been buffed so much. Any little buff, I'll take it. I'll take it. Rikoris, 3-star Moonlight, decreases debuff durations of all allies by 1 turn and attacks all enemies with a shockwave with an 80% each to inflict decreased speed and restrict for 2 turns. So he is getting buffs because before he would just dispel 1 buff. Now he's decreasing debuff durations of all allies by 1 turn. And he has an 80% chance to inflict that speed and restrict for 2 turns, which is kind of nice. Captain Rikoris, so this is after you go through the specialty change. With a 100% chance to dispel 1 buff from the target before a 75% chance to restrict. He has a 75% chance to stun with the enemy with the highest combat readiness. He recovers health. He would try to do a little bit of everything and he would do nothing. Now, he decreases debuff durations of all allies by 2 turns and attacks all enemies with a spear art with an 80% chance to inflict decreased speed and restrict for 2 turns. So they clearly define his supreme spear. He doesn't stun anymore. He doesn't gain his HP back anymore. He doesn't deal damage based on his HP. So I don't know. Is that a nerf kind of? They did increase his damage. So maybe he's a bit more viable. The cooldown though is 5 turns. So that was his thing about his Supreme Spear before. it was on a low cooldown. They increased his attack by 15%, his crit chance by 10%. These are his runes, increasing attack of all allies by 5%. It looks like they're taking away his tankiness. Before he had health and defense. Now he's giving everybody some attack. He's increasing his damage dealt by quick pierce, which I believe is his S1. Before it only worked against dark elemental units. When using quick pierce, has a 100% chance to recover 5% of damage dealt. Maybe this can make him more viable in like GVG. I don't know. We'll see, because he is losing bulk, so it's gonna make him survive a little bit less. So we'll see how that goes. Yoonryoung, she decreases debuff durations by 1 turn now. And her battle cry, she grants increased attack and immunity for 2 turns and decreases debuff durations by 1 turn. So this is, I believe, her S3. I haven't used Yoonryoung, but hey, 3 stars getting buffs, I'm fine with that. Arowell is a unit that you never hear of. Her shield thrust attacks with a sword and shield and a 75% chance to dispel 2 buffs. Damage dealt increased proportional to the caster's max health. So she's an HP scaling bruiser. Now she has a 75% chance each to dispel 2 buffs. She's getting a damage increase, and her soul burn is a 100% chance to dispel 2 buffs. Before, she would give a barrier to the ally with the lowest health for 2 turns. Now she's at the start of the battle, and at the end of the turn grants escort to the caster for 1 turn. Oh, escort. It's actually the escort buff, right? Where you deal some... It's a damage mitigation buff, okay? After an ally, except for the caster, suffers a single attack, increases combat readiness of the caster by 10%. So she's actually getting escort, and now she's getting a CR push. Single attack, right? Defensive position, attacks the enemy with a 100% chance to stun for 1 turn. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. Attack scaling has been decreased, and health scaling has been increased. Again, she was supposed to be a health scaling bruiser. Looks like they're making her that now. Her defensive position also now grants a barrier to allies for 2 turns. Damage dealt and barriers to increase proportional to the caster's max health. So a lot of barriers in this update, right? Mitigation, she's giving escort buff. So she's always going to have the escort buff then. That's actually pretty cool. You know, this might make her a bit more viable now. HP, another option, right? Another option for a tank. I think that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the artifacts in this update. Alencinox's Wrath. I don't think anyone used this. Before it would increase the crit chance by 1 to 2% when someone's turn ends, and it could stack up to 20 times. Now it increases critical hit chance by 15. And then after activating an extra attack on the caster's turn, increases combat readiness by 10 to 20%. I think that's fine. You know, you're getting a base 15%. I'm completely fine with that. And that now this artifact, anyone that extra attacks gets CR push. This is like a buff for Alencia, right? This is her artifact. She gets a CR push every time she goes with the S1. Makes her a little bit easier to build, but, you know, is a CR push going to be really worth instead of maybe more damage or like Sigurd's Scythe, something like that? I don't know. We'll see. Double Edge Decrescent. This is Ervalen's artifact. After attacking with a single attack, increases the caster's attack by 5 to 10% with a 15 to 30% chance to silence for 1 turn. Increase effect can stack up to 3 times. So it was trying to do a lot, but nobody used this artifact. Now it increases evasion by 20%. This is a thief artifact, okay? So it increases evasion by 20% after successfully evading, has a 15 to 30% chance to counterattack. So built-in counter and evasion for thieves now. I think this could potentially be good, but you're going to have to max it out, right? Because you're going to want the 30% chance to counterattack so that your thief can deal damage. So evasion is nice, but this reminds me of Violet, right? They're trying to make every single thief in here Violet or something. I don't know. We'll see. But that's it. who do you think is the winner out of this? Ervalen definitely got shafted. His kit just got obliterated. Definitely a nerf. I think it definitely got a nerf. I think Senya is probably the winner out of these. And then maybe second up is going to be Faithless Lidica with that team-wide CR push and then additional dispelling of the buff. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. You know, who are you hoping to get buffs? You know, I was looking for Briar Witch's Area, but hey, it is what it is. Like always, if you happen to enjoy the video, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hey, think about subscribing. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people like you who like content like this. Like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.